Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and this week I'm joined by American retro design expert Dustin Lee and the incredibly talented South African illustrator Lisa Glantz. I'm afraid Ian is actually on vacation this week, or holiday as us Brits say, but he'll be back with us next time. In this week's episode, we chat all about haters. There's nothing worse than someone saying horrible things about your creative work, but we dig deep into how to deal with this kind of abuse, how to shift your mindset when it comes to haters, and how to try and avoid getting hate in the first place. Let's get into the show. So this week we're talking all about haters, obviously specifically within the design community. And I know we've touched on this a couple of times in terms of just negativity and what that can do to your mindset. But we kind of thought it warranted a whole episode because I think the emotional and psychological reaction to it can be really damaging for a lot of designers. And so I don't know where it's going to go today in our chat, but hopefully we'll land on some perspective. What are your guys' thoughts when it comes to haters? First of all, am I correct in saying they're big meanies? They're mean people.
They are. Fortunately, I haven't had too much experience with that, but the odd time that I have had to deal with it, I mean, I'm a total wuss when it comes to that. It affects me badly. I just don't have a thick skin. So, also I have this overwhelming desire to really make people happy with my products and happy with what I do. So when it doesn't go that way, it doesn't sit well with me because, it's like, it feels like a direct hit to the heart. And then you have to remember, you got to take 2 steps back and say, well, is this person, what they're saying really, does it have, is it true? Is there actually a merit in what they're saying? And often than not, if you really analyze and you read between the lines, they're actually just ranting for the sake of ranting, or they've totally misunderstood the product, which sometimes can happen.
Interestingly, too, these two tie together: imposter syndrome and haters. So we all have imposter syndrome. I don't think it ever goes away. And haters, almost by definition, are the people that confirm for us all of our worst fears of being imposters by calling us out on all these things, even if they're not true.
Yeah.
So they work hand in hand together.
Yeah. It's like your worst nightmare coming true. Yeah.
Oh. And we've touched on this before. I do think creatives are inherently thinner skinned than some other people. And I'm calling myself out here, but it seems to, for so many designers, be part and parcel. We've talked about this, our ego is linked to our work, and so it feels very personal if someone attacks that. It's like they're attacking us. What do you guys think about there being a dividing line between haters and people who are just giving us bad feedback? Because for me, I think there definitely is one. Like we obviously have quite a large community, so even though it's the absolute tiniest minority, we do get feedback through that's negative. But I think if there's a shred of truth behind it, no matter how horrible the person might be being, I think that's actually useful and something you can react to. That for me isn't a hater. A hater is just someone who is being like vitriolic and just outright nasty for the sake of it, and there's nothing really there. It's not like, well, this product didn't work and I'm pissed off. It's much more like, just screw you, you suck. Like trying to bring you down.
Yeah. I think it's so true what you're saying, because the few times that this has happened where the conversation started off negative, and then it's difficult to do this, but it is necessary for you to actually take 2 steps back, reread the message, or if it obviously via email or whatever, and really look into it if you can, and see maybe the person's got a point. Maybe they haven't sort of put it across very nicely, so it's difficult to actually see the merit in it. But try and strip away all the horrible stuff, and then kind of see maybe this person's got a point. And I have found that sometimes they've actually been helpful, as you said, Tom. I mean, sometimes you can actually gain a little bit of insight into, okay, so if this person's peeved off, maybe there's something that I did wrong or wasn't clear or whatever, so it can be helpful, but you do need to take a breather first before you that's the biggest advice I can give. I'm sure you guys have the same method. You can't reply straight away, because then you're going to reply out of anger or frustration. You got to wait.
For sure. I get emails. Very rarely is it just a straight up hate email. I got one time that absolutely just twisted my heart out, where it said, I bought this product from you. This was in regards to product. And they said, I immediately put it into my trash bin.
Yeah, that's harsh.
That really hurt, as you can tell by the fact that I still remember it. But I've had clients say too, I remember when I was early on, a client said something like, I could have done this better myself, and I've never even used one of these programs, and it just hurt me so
That's
deeply
horrible
to hear that. But I think when you have to reply directly to a customer, whether it be a client, customer, whatever the relationship is, obviously you have to wait. I always think of Abraham Lincoln talking about how he would put a letter in his drawer for a day or two before he would send it off or before he would respond. And then I think of the great Martha Stewart, who I just read, who said she never reads the comments, referring to social media.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I guess it depends. I know Tom interacts a lot in comments, or his team does, but I can understand when you put something out, just simply not reading comments makes a lot of sense for some people.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, but I don't think you should be head in the sand and just... Because there's so much good out there, like having an engaged, incredible community, making friends, really getting to know your fans, that completely trumps the one person in 1,000, and they shouldn't put you off all of that goodness.
It's true. And
it's
a weird thing, isn't it? As a human being, you have say 100 brilliant comments in the month, and then one bad one kind of undoes all the other stuff, which is, I mean, you shouldn't let that happen, but it's difficult not to.
It's human nature. Yeah.
Right. And you notice some platforms are much more prone to have haters or trolls on them than others. For instance, YouTube
horrendous.
can go down the hole real quick. Whereas Facebook tends to be friends.
Sorry, Dustin, the only one I can think of which is worse than YouTube is Reddit, where you just get eaten alive, right?
Reddit, if they catch the whiff of something that sounds salesy or whatever, they will eat you alive for sure.
Well, not even that. I feel like it's even though it's perhaps quite geeky, it's almost like the cool kids at school where you're not part of their club. So it's like, oh, you don't understand all of their expressions they're using, and they've almost got their own kind of slang language. And if you're not cool enough to get it, then you're a freak, and you're just going to get firebombed.
That is horrible.
Although I have to say, I think Reddit's a great jewel of the internet, because Reddit is, I feel so honest in so many ways, and still so simple and just purely about, I don't know. There's something I really like about Reddit, even though it can go to some bad places sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I watched a documentary on Reddit recently, and as you say, it's a very honest place. I think it's cool. It's almost like a little haven away from other parts of the internet. But I think possibly the advice is, depending on how thick or thin your skin is, you could be self-aware of which platforms you use.
Yeah.
So if you've got a thick skin, it's fine, go and vlog on YouTube. But if you're incredibly thin-skinned and you're putting out a personal vlog on YouTube, you're going to get some people, if you get any kind of view count, you're going to get some people telling you straight to your face that you're a moron, or you're ugly, or they hate you, or whatever.
I just find that incredible that they feel that's okay. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but it's keyboard warriors, right? Most of these people, they're probably 14 years old, and they never say it to someone's face.
Yeah.
But they're just there trying to get a reaction.
What's crazy about it, or to me, is sometimes, if I go on, I never pronounce this right. Is it Quora?
Quora.
Sorry, Quora. I'll go on there and sometimes someone will be like, I do design. I remember seeing someone say that and they said, am I good enough to do this? And then the top comment was something like, no, you're not. Like, this is horrible. This is no good. That there's no way you could compete out there and do this. And then I went and looked at the person's work and was like, this person could have a perfectly fine career just starting, you know, it's very decent work and they'll get even better. So it's worth talking about the fact that haters are not right most of the time. It's opinion, and it tends to be, can you be consistently continue to work, you'll be fine no matter what someone says. But
yeah,
that's a good point.
I'm gonna do my tagline. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you how do you handle it when someone is hating on stuff?
All right, Lisa, you go.
Well, I mean, again, it depends on what the first thing I have to say is that you also need to be aware. So it's kind of a two-way street. When you're putting yourself out there to ask a question, as provocative as that and as open to criticism as that, like, am I good enough to do this? Then you need to expect that you're going to get, you know, quite a reaction, because you're opening the door for every type of person to give you their opinion. So there's that. And then, of course, if you do get the horrible comments, you just have to, I don't know, rate them and try and figure out if they actually have anything. To me, a comment, if it's not like constructive, then, like, if you're just going to say, hey, dude, you suck, well, why do I suck? You know, you know, if you're not going to tell me why, then I'm sorry, you haven't really helped me at all. So even though you think you've helped me by being nasty, you actually haven't. So yeah, I don't know.
I tend to just try and get unemotional about it, which is easier said than done because, well, yeah, exactly. I'm still working on that. But I think no matter where the hater falls on the spectrum, the answer is always getting unemotional. So, for example, if they are being somewhat constructive, but kind of horrible and negative in the process, then you don't get unemotional, you get practical, and you channel any emotion that you might feel into taking action, which is, you know, seeing the validity of their comments and trying to improve your product or service. So if someone's like, you suck, Glance, like, this is the worst vector I've ever used, and, you know, here's why I hate everything about it, then you might get that gut reaction of, oh, that feels terrible. But then if you channel into, right, okay, well, they actually kind of have a point in points 2 and 5. So I'm actually going to come back and let them know that I am improving that, and thanks for their honest critique. And so you kind of get positive out of it. If it's the camp where they're just like, you suck and I hate you, and there's nothing, then I just wouldn't even waste time on it. So I would get unemotional. I wouldn't respond. Like, I would just leave it and abandon it. And I think I remember years ago, I was in a forum. I don't know if I've told you guys this, but I was in a forum and I had this thread in a previous forum where I helped people out with their design work. I'm sure I told you this, but anyway, so I help people out with their design work, and people would post it, and I'd like redesign it or give them constructive feedback, and it went really well, and it felt really good doing it. So I went to a forum which was more full of designers, and I offered to do the same thing, and everyone was like, "Who the hell do you think you are, you idiot?" Like, and they like tore me apart. And there was this one guy in particular, and I kept coming back being like, no, genuinely, like, you know, I'm not trying to sell anything. I have good intentions here. Here's the backstory of why I'm doing it. And a couple of people gave me the benefit of the doubt, and this one guy was like on my case being like, you suck, like every word you say is like bull, and he just wouldn't get off my case. And I talked to the guys in the original forum about it, and they were saying they were like, don't wrestle with a pig, because you both get covered in mud and the pig likes it. And that was their that was their analogy for haters.
Oh, that's so true. It is so true. Gosh.
And it is true. Like, you don't want to emotionally invest in getting into a back and forth with them, because they're like gleefully behind their keyboard pushing all your buttons.
Yeah.
And you're never
that reminds me of a Steve Jobs story I'd heard where they'd released something, I don't know, it was a new Mac or whatever, new Apple product it was, and a journalist just wrote this scathing review of it, talking about how horrible it was. And Steve Jobs, has a big company, obviously, and rarely would write back, but he wrote back and was just like, well, what's so great that you ever did? Which isn't maybe the best healthy thing to ask people, but it might be like a good question to ask inside yourself. I've noticed a lot of times people doing that, you're like, well, you're not putting anything out. You're hiding behind stuff. I'm putting stuff out, and maybe I'm putting myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can use that, but it just reminded me of that story.
I haven't actually read it yet, but there's a guy I follow on Instagram called Dan Norris, and he wrote an ebook called Create or Hate. And I believe, from what I've seen in the blurbs and stuff, he's kind of split the character into two, where you're either someone who produces something and creates something, or you're someone who hates on what other people do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much better to be the person creating stuff, and it doesn't always have to be perfect or even good, but at least you're there doing something instead of just ragging on other people.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
That can definitely help, as you said, Dustin, internally. You don't necessarily have to, fire that comment back to the hater. You can pretty much just say it to yourself and say, look, I know I'm putting myself out there. I bet you this person isn't,
Right. And it's very much like a war. Everything you put out is, if you want to put it into a violent war-like scenario, it's the war you're fighting creatively, right? So every battle, you're not going to win every battle. So you might put something out and people might not like it, or maybe it's not successful. But if you're consistently put it out, you win the war in terms of creativity and trying to fulfill your true self or your true creative goals.
Precisely.
So.
Exactly. And
I just thought of a... Sorry, Lisa.
No. You finish, because I just want to change the direction a little. So you finish.
Oh no, I'm going to be incredibly random here. So the other day I saw a Twitter response from Liam Gallagher of Oasis.
Yeah, of course.
And he's so harsh to people. But this guy tweeted him in response to something he said, being like, I think you need to chill out, mate, or something like that. And he just wrote back this tweet. And the guy who kind of ragged on him was called Fred. And his response, he was like, I'm going to cut some expletives out here. But he was like, effing Fred. He was like, I'll thread you through the needle of life, mate. And just like destroyed the guy publicly.
I just recently saw some of, you say it Liam?
Yeah.
Liam, yeah.
Is that how you say it? It's not an American name typically, so I'm always not sure if it's like Liam or Liam. I'd seen some of his tweets, and they were showing them. They're like his top 25 best tweets, and some of them would be so random. They'd be like, we're not even really sure what this one means. But and then you'd read it, and you'd be like, what does that mean? But it's pretty hilarious. But
yeah, he's kind of a twisted genius.
This whole thing has reminded me of something I had read in a book by Bertrand Russell, and he had said, we all talk behind each other's backs, right? We're, no matter friends or not friends, but we always like talk to our spouses or other people, and you say things about people, and even your friends. Not particularly harsh things, hopefully, but we all do.
Yeah, discuss stuff.
And anyone who denies it is lying.
Yeah,
because we all do at some point. But whenever it comes out in public, we're so shocked, as if maybe we're the only person on earth that no one ever says anything about when they're not around.
I know.
So I try to remind myself of that, well, I do that. We all do it. We all need to express ourselves and have conversations with people. So when someone does, it shouldn't come as any surprise.
No.
Once in a while, it peeks through, the gopher peeks through and is like, oh, here is an actual thing someone's saying. It's probably an indication of what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
That's made me feel incredibly insecure. It's like, what's everyone saying?
Yeah. Right, though? We're so indignant. I can't believe this person said this about me. I know I think that. And then I'm like, why wouldn't they?
I can honestly say I've never said a bad word against Lisa or Ian.
Oh. Sorry for you, Dustin.
That was a very subtle jab. I know exactly what you've said about me. That SOB will not. Why won't he not send these recordings in on time? Why will he not get us these damn files on time?
Speaking of Ian, by the way, I don't think we've even acknowledged the poor guy being absent today.
We miss you, Ian.
Ian, we miss you.
We do miss you.
Yeah, actually, we don't because he's on yet another vacation.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
Never mind. Yeah, actually, I remember seeing a picture of him by this beautiful beach. Never mind.
Yeah, no, take that back.
Life's tough, eh?
Cool. Lisa, what were you going to get into?
No, actually, it's similar to what Dustin sort of touched on, is that we, although obviously we may not all be as horrible as full-on haters, but sometimes we can also be a little harsh or maybe not as nice in our comments, and we also need to take responsibility for that. Like, were you saying it really to help the person, or were you just getting a dig in, sideways somehow? So you also need to kind of self-reflect sometimes. I mean, not necessarily for other designers. You don't necessarily, harsh on them, but just like, when you're in the traffic or when you're in the queue in a shop, or it's very quick to point fingers, but yeah, I mean, we're all human, I guess. But yeah, it's
wait, what do you mean, you guys? Are you saying that there's some other kind of being out there that I'm unaware of?
Some of us are human. Others are lizards. I have evidence. But
I've got a weird tip to make you feel better about haters.
Yeah.
If possible, go and look on their profile, because I have never once clicked through on a hater's profile and I'm like, wow, they're
That's
devilishly
cool.
handsome and confident and successful in life. Like not once, because the people who are being really disgustingly horrible to you, they're generally pretty weird and like insecure themselves and obviously not successful. And people don't hate down on people. They only hate up.
Oh,
It's
that's
always
true.
the case. Like you never
so
look
true.
down on someone and like pity them and like give them a really hard time.
Yeah.
You only hate on people who are doing better than you, or you're jealous or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's as you said, it's unlikely that somebody really successful and is going to turn around to somebody who's still getting there and say, "Hey, dude, you suck." I mean, it's
right.
Of course.
it's just not. I mean, it's uncommon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I know over the years, I've definitely had haters in some capacity, same as you guys. So I've had it from clients, the same as you mentioned, Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
We've had it from customers, had it on social media, and I think similar to a lot of topics we talk about, you can work on this stuff and you can try and take some tips from this episode, but you also need to fall back on the knowledge. It's always going to affect you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it just means you're human and you have emotions. Like it would be pretty odd. It's like, would you really wish to become the kind of person where you're completely unaffected by anything? Because I don't think that's a great alternative. So it's like, kind of take ownership of the pain or the hurt or whatever it is. And of course, try and move on or react positively to it. But just recognize, like, as it happens, it's like, yeah, okay, this is meant to suck. Like, it's not meant to be nice.
Yeah.
Two things I would mention with dealing with those people is, one, in my experience, it's very hard for someone to continue to dog you if you agree with them.
You suck. You're completely right, sir.
Yes, I do suck.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've quite literally done that. Someone will say, "I can't believe you did it this way. That was absolutely ridiculous." And then I'll look into it, and unless if they're wrong, I'll be like, "You're wrong," or I just won't talk. I won't acknowledge the response. But if they're right, I'll say, "You're absolutely right. We didn't do this the best way, and we're going to change this because I just learned something." And if they can't understand that I'm learning things too, and they think I'm omniscient or something like that, then to hell with them.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing too is that, remember, even haters have their lives, so they're doing all these other things. They're not thinking about you. They put that thing on the internet, they forget about it and go eat a corn dog and I don't know, go watch like the Game of Thrones on their cable box like I do, things like that. They're not thinking about you. So just remember, like, these people write this stuff and then quickly forget about you and are more concerned about their own lives. So don't let it have more power over you than it does them. Yeah. They're not even thinking about you.
No, that's smart, actually. And we've had really negative people at Design Kurtz who we respond positively, and they actually come back and apologize and say, look, that isn't normally me. Like, that's really not me as a person. I just had the worst day from hell. I just lost my job or whatever happened, and I just needed an outburst.
Yeah.
that might not be fair to you, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of ties into what I was thinking about. Unfortunately, it is more prominent amongst women. I could be wrong, yeah. But that we tend to kind of get stuck into the drama of everything, and we attract the drama. So like we will engage in the person that's a hater and try and like, well, what's so great about you and whatever. I mean, I don't know, but the whole point is, as you said, if you actually nip it in the bud by being polite, and it is hard sometimes. Sometimes you want to tell the person, hey, buddy, go take a kite and fly it off the edge of the mountain something, but the point is that you've got to you can't get attracted to the drama, because I know some people are. They want to get involved. They also want to be right. They want to tell the person how wrong they are and how right they are. And I think that whole debate and that whole getting into that sort of whole in never-ending conversation is just going to create more and more haters and more drama. So you got to really like concentrate on how do I get this sorted as soon as possible. And if it may mean don't respond, or if you respond positively, so yeah.
I actually think as well, having a clear direction and focus on what you're doing makes this stuff kind of rebound off you easier.
True.
Because for me, I take this stuff to heart. If I'm floating around and feeling already a bit insecure about not quite knowing what I'm doing or what I should be working on, and then I get something like that, I have the time to stew on it.
True.
But if I'm moving forward so fast and I'm working on like project after project and just tearing through this work and feeling really motivated, then I'm like, oh, okay, hey, I don't really have time for you.
Genius comment. Well done, Tom. That was pretty.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, and think about like what a rabbit hole that is too. When you start making negative comments, and then you dedicate yourself to responding back and rebuting their defense things. So much awesome stuff could be done in that time. Like Tom's saying, you could be making all this awesome stuff, or you can just be contributing to this conversation that just disappears into the bottomless pit that is the internet.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, it's wasted energy. I honestly think logically and for the sake of your own mindset, probably disregarding any hater is helpful, but in many cases that isn't an option. For example, with clients or customers, you can't just ignore them.
Yeah.
So you do need to react, and maybe it's worth taking a quick look at the differences there to try and help people. So for me, just because we try and put customer care at the front of everything we do with Design Cuts, I've got into some long chats where people are like screaming and swearing at me, and like I had this on Facebook years ago where someone was like, F you, like you suck, and I was like, I'm terribly sorry to hear that, like what can I do to help? And they're like, nothing, you idiot, you effing suck. And it's like over and over again, and eventually like I almost like forced her to let me help her, and then found a solution, and then she was like, about time, and like went off, and that for me was like a victory that I'd finally won her over. But that's my personal stance, is when it comes to customers, just like bend over backwards and fall over yourself to try and win over every single one, and that's kind of like a personal mission for me. I think it's probably slightly different with clients. What do you guys think on that front? Because I know you've both done client work. Is, you know what I mean? That's not some faceless person on social media who's one of 100,000.
Yeah, I think it depends on the client. I mean, I know this sounds bad, but the type of client. Like, is it a long-standing client? Is someone that you actually want to keep? Maybe it's a personality clash, because then you don't want to be working with them because you're going to have problems forever. Or again, analyze it. Is it something that you didn't deliver that you promised, or is it something you've done wrong? But if it's just literally a case of if it's also out of their character, maybe something bad happened in their life, that you may want to even. You might, depends on your relationship, want to mention, like, I'm really sorry you feel that way, but I believe this and this and this. And is there something perhaps that you're angry about? Or I don't know. It depends on your it depends on your relationship. But but if it's a new client and you're really not getting on, then I don't know, that relationship you might need to think about going.
Yeah.
I heard something from one of U.S. presidents, Bill Clinton's technique when he was dealing with people from different countries, and he had said or told someone, I never negotiate with someone unless I know that they've gotten a good rest and a good meal and no one's in the room that irritates them. Which I think is just a good thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with people. I mean, my little daughter, if she hasn't eaten or taken a nap, it is obvious. As we become adults, we become really good at masking that. But I believe we're exactly the same. If we need a nap or we haven't eaten, we can be a lot more difficult to deal with. Yes. And we're just better at hiding it and putting excuses in front of why we act that way. So, I mean, gosh, someone could just be hungry and need a sandwich. You don't know.
Well, maybe that could be your line. Hey, buddy, when last did you eat?
Yeah.
What if that was just the default, like before, like the auto response, like, please, before like submitting this response, have you eaten a sandwich? Have you taken a nap?
Or if you're out with a client, just shove some food in their face.
Yes, for sure. Make sure it's not around like the time that people take naps. If you catch me around like 1:30, it's not the best time, and I haven't eaten lunch, and I'm tired from my nap. It's all going to hell.
Oh, that's so good. I like that.
Come to think of it, I've never seen an angry person holding a brownie.
Yes. Have you ever noticed that when delicious food comes to a table, everyone gets quiet?
Yes.
It becomes the most silent, peaceful place you've ever been. Try it. Pay attention next time a delicious meal comes to a table. Everyone will become quiet and happy.
Oh, yes.
Okay, we're kind of being ridiculous here, but
it's true. It's so true.
Business brain is trying to take this somewhere. So, what is a metaphorical brownie that you can give people online? You get where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I guess it has to be a metaphorical brownie. I was going to say, why don't just give them a brownie? But
yeah,
that's hard on the internet with technology right now.
I used to kind of make my clients feel that they were so right, you know, even though they were so wrong. So you kind of like, I don't know, butter them up. That's what I used to do a lot of the time.
Okay. Wait, can we get some examples or specifics there?
Well, if I disagreed with their opinions about the feedback they gave me, you know, say they wanted something to be, I don't know, yellow instead of whatever. You know, I'd say to them, wow, what a brilliant suggestion. I think that's so good. You obviously have, you know, thought about this, but so you can kind of like, you know, build them up to break them down. No, to build them up and then, you know, go in and sort of tell them no. I don't know.
Going for the kill.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Okay, I've got one for you.
Yeah.
Make your contact page or whatever point of contact there is for the hate, make it more personal if you can. Because if you are there with like a smiling, friendly picture of yourself and quite colloquial, personalized language, it's going to be harder for the average person to send a bunch of like venomous statements compared to just a faceless, cold contact page.
True.
Good idea.
I also find that like when people write their about pages in, is it third person? I always get confused when they say,
yes,
Sally is a lovely designer and studied at. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I think it needs to be, you know, in your language, the way you speak, the way you think. It makes it more human.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of any company that even should do that. Like, even if it was a big company like Disney, it would make more sense if they were like, we believe in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Not like
as opposed
they
to
are
Disney Corp believes in.
Yeah.
What, or something like on a contact page, people can sometimes select options. So it'll be like, what can I help with? And then if they select the option, I have a problem with something, then some text appears below that being like, oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, please drop me a message and I seriously want to do my very best to help you, or something like that.
That's a good tip.
So it's kind of already starting a softer conversation.
Yeah.
Like, this is a really simple one that I do a lot is I always try to include when someone has a problem a link in my email response. So for instance, today someone was frustrated because they couldn't figure out how to get a certain character in one of our fonts, and it was an alternate character. So I could have just explained it or said it's in there. You just need to look in here. But I put a link to a tutorial on how to find alternate characters. I think that by putting some sort of link, it expresses.
Yeah,
I did a little bit of work. It wasn't a bunch, but at least I did some work to try to get you somewhere, as opposed to just being like, yeah, that kind of sucks. Bye.
Yeah.
Well, even beyond that, what we do sometimes is we do a screen capture video.
I also
and when
do
you
that.
do those, often it gets what's on your webcam and puts that in the bottom corner. So they can actually see your face talking to them, being like, oh no, I'm really sorry. Like, thanks for getting in touch. I'm going to walk you through this.
That's great.
It's pretty hard to come back to that and be like, well, screw you again. Like,
yeah, it's true.
Because they can see you're really putting the effort in and personalizing it for them.
Totally true.
Yeah, I think definitely the personal touch is big.
I've done that on the video thing on particularly like when a customer is really upset, where I'll do that and I'll put my face in the corner too. And I just figure, man, like you said, if you do that, it's so hard to argue that you didn't try your best, because it takes a disproportionate amount of time on one person to do that, that it's hard to argue that you didn't try your best to help.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. It's worth getting something like Camtasia or any simple thing to do videos, whether you're working with clients or customers, I think.
ScreenFlow is what we use. That's a bit cheaper, I think, but
ScreenFlow is a great one.
Useful.
And how do you guys feel about okay, so they don't have a technical problem, so to speak, but they actually have a general comment about a product or a service or whatever. How do you feel about offering them a freebie or a discount? Or, I mean, do you think that's
I
worthy?
always think of that saying where they say your customers that are angry are your best opportunities to make like raving customers. Like that always enters my mind. I don't know if I always do the best job fully. Probably Tom can speak to doing an even better job on that, but it always goes through my mind. This is an opportunity to make someone fanatic about.
Yeah, you've made this point before, Dustin. The people who are like that are often more passionate. And so if their passion's channeled into positivity, then they can be the most outspoken the other way too.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I would agree with that. We've had a few where someone is like really aggressive in their first email, and then we write back and we're nice and helpful, and then they say, oh, I'm sorry, like the last time I sent an email like this was to one of your competitors, and they were really like bad with how they dealt with me, and so I presumed I would get that back from you, and that's why I emailed so aggressively, and they're kind of refreshed by the change. And so that's a kind of alternate situation to someone having a bad day. It's just someone having a bad experience or a bad context or presuming something. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person.
Yeah.
So true, because we're so used to sending stuff off and expecting that it just never gets acknowledged, that lots of times I think people write feeling like they're venting into
thin air.
Into the abyss, and no one's ever going to see it. And then someone writes back like, oh, someone saw that? Oh, sorry about that. That's not really me. I was just talking into an empty cave.
No, but it's true, because I mean, a lot of places don't respond. I mean, I often get people saying, wow, you actually like came back to me. I wasn't expecting a response at all, you know. So I think people,
they're like, oh, this is awkward. I didn't know you were really there.
Yeah.
Lisa, can I put you on the spot here?
Who, me?
Because we need to get you back for the last episode.
You have to what? Sorry, I missed that.
We have to get you back for the last episode.
What last episode? Oh, yeah. But no one's going to know what it means.
Lisa told us rude things in Afrikaans and we didn't realise. So, Lisa, I'm going to pretend to be someone on social media and I want to hear your real-time response.
Really?
To how you would deal with it. Okay.
Look at that. Dustin's clapping.
I love these.
Okay.
So you've just put an illustration up and I'm here and my name is Bob235 and I'm leaving a comment. And I'm saying to you, wow, that bunny is the most hideous thing I've ever seen. It looks like it fell out the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down.
That's what I would be doing. I'd be laughing.
So what would you say if someone put that on your Instagram?
Okay, but that's
retweet.
I mean, that's the problem with that hating comment, is that it's so ludicrously ridiculous that all you can do is laugh. I must be honest, I would probably respond back with one of those faces that are laughing. That would be it.
That's a genuine response, and probably not a bad one.
Yeah. I mean,
But
and then they were
the reason I said that is because some hate is ridiculous, and we've been talking about trying to appease people. But if you wrote back and you're like, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry for my bunny's hideous face," like that can't really work.
No, I think in that particular instance, especially on a platform like, say, Instagram, I would probably just laugh at him. I mean, yeah. I mean, what can you say to that? It's just, yeah.
What about a response like this? Like these, because you're right, those ones I think are easier to either laugh at or ignore or whatever. But what if they were like, I'm looking at your work, it's clear you didn't like format this originally in this file type. You claim to be making this for people that are printing apparel and things like that, but like you've set it up in such a way that you're making it nearly impossible for them. Have you ever even printed apparel? You have no room to be doing this, and I can tell easily by looking at your work that you don't know what you're doing.
Well, the first thing
that's a brutal one.
It is brutal.
By the way, I don't believe any of that. I felt actually kind of like a piece of poop after I said that. That's not true about you.
Well, the first thing I'd sort of do is look at all the things he is accusing me of and whether it actually has any truth. So did I make it difficult for him to, print his apparel? If none of it actually has merit and none of it is true, then I would definitely come back to that person and try and win him over, and explain my thought process behind it, but also tell him I'd be open to hearing how he would have preferred the file, because I'm willing to learn and willing to sort of, get everyone's opinion, because I want to please as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would try and do the best I can to, if it's a case of I want my money back, then yeah, that's tricky. I mean, if he's not happy with my response, then I mean, I would obviously refund him. But yeah, hopefully you can win him over, but trying to fix his problem. Sometimes I've even gone one step further, and if it's a particular thing they're struggling with, and they actually often the case is they actually don't have the skills themselves, but they're accusing you of not setting it up in a particular way that they find easy, then I would actually do one thing for them and say and show them in a video, this is how you do it, this is it. And yeah, as you said, you often get then a fan for life because you've gone that extra mile.
I like that.
Cool. So I've got a third one for you, Lisa.
This is so unfair.
And I've got a fourth one.
What about when people profess to be almost better than they are? So it will be like, I'm a 45-year industry. I can't even talk now. Let me start over.
Good. You see what happens when you nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the hate out. I can't even. So they're like, I'm a 45-year industry veteran. Like, if you don't think I don't know a thing or two about this, you are sorely mistaken. And they're like really talking down to you and giving you a super hard time.
I've had that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I find those quite hard to deal with because sometimes they can have valid points, but it's more a case of like, I just don't like your tonality and I don't think you should be speaking to me like that.
Yeah.
So how would you deal with something like that?
I would try and be, because often those kind of people, I'm not saying always, they actually just want to say that they're good. They actually don't want really like, I want my money back or this isn't working. It's often just the case of like, hey, I've been doing this for so long and since you were in diapers and blah 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 blah. That's cool. That's great, buddy. I'm glad that you're still in this industry after so long. You must be really, proficient at what you do. We're all
buddy there.
We're all kind of like choose directions that we want to go, and sometimes that may not be the exact. We don't work the same way. Each artist is different. It depends on his issue, of course, but. Yeah, I mean, if it's a case of like, the way you set that up is terrible and I've been doing this for so long, and then, you can explain why you did it the way you did it. But yeah, generally, they just want to tell you how fantastic they are and they know a lot more than you. So let them have their say and, push them on their merry way.
I was just thinking, a cool part about these kind of conversations is if you're going to have to respond, it takes effort. but they're like the seeds. It's like the little seedling of a really great article for your blog if you have one for your design studio, or even if it's just on Facebook, you can turn it into a conversation that's actually like a really great educational thing. Because you're putting the effort in anyways. You're trying to make like a good, answer back to it, or you're letting them talk, better yet, and provide a fantastic free article for you. So you might as well look at it as an opportunity to make a piece of actually legitimate content. I think it tends to be when someone's emotional about something, there's a reason,
Yes.
and it's typically because it's an important subject for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. And on a slightly smaller scale than a blog article, if it's happening on social media, you'd be surprised how many other people see your response anyway. So if you're there and you're charming and helpful, it's not just a case of you expending that effort to appease an angry, negative person, but you're actually impressing your wider community or customers.
Good point.
And I must say, like, obviously all this stuff comes with experience, and the longer you're alive on this planet, the easier things get. Well, you hope they do.
I was just going to say, Lisa, do you find you care less?
You know what it is? It's a combination. I care more, but I care less. Well, I care more for the important stuff, but I care less for the non-important stuff. So, like, I have bigger sympathy for. Often if you really break down a negative comment, you can really feel their hurt. So it's like I can feel that this person is sad and frustrated and whatever, and they just need to vent. And because you have that compassion, it makes it easier, and it totally directs it completely away from you, because it's not about you at the end of the day. It's about that person having a shitty life. And sorry, am I allowed to say that?
No, language.
Or just a hard day.
Yeah.
Because I think there's very few real villains in the world. It's mostly people having bad days.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many, like, most people are good people, and often when they're lashing out, it's because of something's going on, that's actually got nothing to do with you. So if you can try and work on that perspective and let that guide you more in your responses to these kind of things, life becomes easier, and the load is lighter, and you take on less that doesn't belong to you, because it doesn't belong to you at the end of the day. It's their stuff, Yeah.
I find as well, I kind of touched on this earlier with choose the social networks which are right for you and that kind of thing. But I think as you get older and wiser and more confident in what you're doing, you are naturally more selective. It's the same in your social life. Hopefully you surround yourself with better and better people, and you have less time for people who waste your time. And I've certainly experienced the same thing professionally, where I'm not trying to appeal to everyone with what we're building. I have the ideal customer in mind, the ideal community member. We choose not to work with some very prolific people, both designers and partners and business people, because they're not my kind of person. And no matter how much money they might make you, it wouldn't be a pleasant working environment.
Exactly.
And so as you get older, I think you lose this desperation to try and just work with anyone or get any affirmation from anyone you possibly can,
and please everyone.
And you get more deliberate and more selective with it, and that naturally, I don't know if it gives you a thicker skin, but it just means you're going to get less stuff from people. And when you do, it's very much like, okay, well, you think that, but you're kind of not part of this personal bubble that I've created with lovely people around me. So you can go exist in someone else's bubble over there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a thicker skin, as you said. It's probably more just a discerning filter. It's kind of filtering out the stuff that's not part of you and not part of your tribe and not part of your journey and stuff. It's not important.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's all a great reason to put more stuff out publicly in front of the world. I think with all the talk of haters, one thing I noticed when I first put things out was how few there are. I expected to, within hours, be completely beat down by people.
Me too.
And I did it, and I kept checking with this, nervousness, butterflies in my stomach, and it never happened. And in all the years I've done it, very few people do that. So go out and do stuff. You would be surprised. I think haters are much more rare and few and far between than you expect. And if you are getting a ton of them, it might be a symptom of something that you need to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. You shouldn't expect a lot. It's like being attacked down the street. There's always a very small chance of that happening, but you can't hide inside for your whole life. And you're going to go out and have a great time and probably not get attacked.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, I know this is probably a little bit out there, but I truly believe that energetically what you put out is what you'll get back. So if you're a nice person, and I mean genuinely, you want to help people, and you love what you do, and it shows in what you do and how you respond to the people around you, you're going to get that kind of thing back. It's going to be very rare that you get the odd person who's a hater, and we've discussed why it could be like that. But so if you're addicted to the drama, you're going to attract that, and you probably need to audit yourself then, as you said, Dustin. I mean, you got to analyze why that's happening to you a lot, if it is happening to you a lot. So yeah,
that is such a good point. Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. It's like bloggers who deliberately put out controversy,
yes,
to stoke that kind of thing in the comments.
Yeah.
You're always going to get that back. Or if you touch on certain controversial subjects like politics or religion,
yeah,
you're going to get that back. So as you say, it's auditing yourself and what you put out there. And obviously in the case of our listenership, it would be your design work. Like if you're constantly putting out controversial work, then you're probably going to get some haters.
or mediocre work, because maybe you need to work on your quality if you're getting a lot of people.
I'm sure they're not doing that deliberately.
No, but
if you're putting out mediocre work, then get better, because you do suck, and the haters have a point.
No, but you know what? Some people, I mean, this might be controversial now. Is that some people, their standards, they let things slide because it's easier. I mean, let's face facts. It's too much effort sometimes. So you do have to look at yourself. Where, what role do you play in the whole situation? Do I quickly get this logo done because this is just taking me too long and send it off? I mean, what kind of reaction do you expect back from your client if you haven't really put in that 100% that you promised? So, yeah.
I agree. Cool. So, any closing thoughts on haters to wrap things up?
Send them smiley faces.
Don't let that control what you do. They're so fleeting and rare that you're missing out on so many amazing, cool things that happen if you just don't invest so much time in worrying about it.
Yeah, don't let it stop you from creating.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Perfect. Thanks, guys. And bye from all of us, minus Ian.
Yeah.
I think he'll be back next week. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that it gave you some solid ideas for how to handle your haters. It's definitely not worth stifling your own creativity because of one or two bad apples. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes by searching for The Honest Designers Show. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.